I'm your guest host, Anthony Tolda, Republican candidate to represent New York State District 2 in United States Congress. We have a very special guest today, Siobhan Ciresi of Long Island Skywatch, and they're a driving force behind this bill, IR 2029, to ban chemtrails in Suffolk County. Now, we'll have Siobhan on in 2 seconds, but I did promise Maria Lopez that I would put out a special prayer request for her to the Manning Report listeners. Maria contacted me last night and was very upset that her husband had been had some phony charges, was arrested for false reasons, and is now very likely going to be deported if nobody could step in and help them. So if you could pray for her, if you could help her out, if you want to contact me at Anthony Tolda for Congress, the audience is welcome to do that for that and or other reasons. And you could reach out to Siobhan and her group, LongIslandSkywatch.com, and myself for more information on Bill IR 2029 to ban chemtrails. Yes,
very exciting. So what would you like to get into now as far as geoengineering? Because there's lots of areas to go into. One of the other fixes that they have for this is artificial trees, reforestation. And what's interesting about that is that it's genetically engineered, right? Genetically engineering trees.
Right.
So you have to have patents to do that. You get patents out on the genetically altered seed or the tree, so that can be owned. So we're talking about consolidation of nature as well, as far as ownership of it. Right now you can own the trees because you've genetically modified them, much like the seeds. So this is part of what's going on too. So there's several experiments and programs suggested for geoengineering.
Right. Now, all of this contact...
The solar radiation management programs, though, are the ones that are of focus for this bill and seeing in our skies regularly.
Right. Now, in a sense, I mean, humans are essentially being geoengineered through the consumption of GMO foods, and it's mainly through the consumption of GMO foods, but also, obviously all this stuff that they're spraying, we're breathing it in, it's absorbing through our skin. So essentially, a human is being engineered to be something other than what we were intended to be.
Yeah. That's right.
So these people they're essentially playing God.
So that's one way to look at it. The consolidation, control, power over weather, over money, over everything, over the food supply.
Sure, and this is something that, if you've ever heard of the story of the Tower of Babel, it's not just something that Christians acknowledge, but it's also something that people of the Jewish faith and even people of the Muslim faith acknowledge this story of the Tower of Babel. And I'm sure the vast majority of the audience is well familiar with that story, but it was essentially man's first attempt at global governance and an elite, small elite playing God.
Interesting, yeah. That's very... Another aspect of the weather modification are, sadly, psychological operations. In Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather 2025, which, again, you can find this on the Internet. It's available. It's not a secret. If you go look it up, you can read it, anybody. And this was written by the Air Force at the initiative of the Department of Defense. And they talk about nanotechnology to manipulate the weather. So they say they can have create simulated weather with nanotechnology, a cloud or several clouds of microscopic computer particles communicating with each other.
For someone that's unfamiliar with the term nanotechnology, I guess my best way to describe it is if anybody's ever heard of an RFID chip, which is in your passports and some credit cards, and even some people are now accepting these chips. The nanotechnology is they can make these chips so small that if you were to buy Philadelphia cream cheese, the I in the word Philadelphia could contain an RFID chip. So that's an example of nanotechnology.
Right, and we have that in our licenses and our passports. All new state driver's licenses and passports have the RFID tracking technology in them.
Right, and now with this geoengineering and the spraying, the nanotechnology, for some uses, maybe not I don't know if the chips could be sprayed into the air. I don't think that would work, but I'm not the expert on that. But
well,
the
in
point
the report,
is,
it's talking about microscopic computer particles
right.
that communicate with each other. So I don't know. I can't speak about how the RFID technology works. But maybe it's something similar, because in here they're talking about using the nanotechnology, having microscopic computer particles communicating with each other to create simulated weather. Okay, so they go on further to say this nanotechnology could also provide an atmospheric electrical potential difference, which otherwise might not exist, to achieve precisely aimed and timed lightning strikes. Now, this is the part about the psychological operations. They say, even if power levels achieved were insufficient to be an effective strike weapon, the potential for psychological operation in many situations could be fantastic. That's their words. That's them quoting their document. So, in addition to everything else, there are actually psychological operations that can take place due to the technology that they're using to modify the weather. So we're in a position where we can't know what's natural anymore. If we see rain, if we see snow, if we see a storm, anything, we cannot know if that is a natural weather system coming in or if that's been created. That's the place we're at.
Sure. I mean, me personally, I'm somebody that, for the longest amount of time, I didn't mind getting caught out in the rain so much. It was just part of nature, part of a human experience. A big deal I'm getting rained on. Now when it rains, I'm thinking, well, I have no idea what my body is absorbing, and I really wish I wasn't getting rained on right now, it's a strange way to perceive being rained on. I liked it a lot better the old way, where I didn't mind so much.
I definitely feel you on that. I feel the same way when I'm outside and there's rain coming down, because I don't know what's in it anymore, or I have ideas what could be in it. I don't like to stay out there, and it's a shame, So we're losing more touch with the natural world, because now everything's so contaminated, and so it's up to us. The federal government does not have our best interests in heart and mind, in their actions and their behaviors. So it's really up to us to do it on our own.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're doing it. I think it was, you said there are 18 people that will be at the general vote on this, and 16 of them voted yes on the first day. So should that ratio continue, and I think you said 4 out of the 5 in the health committee had voted yes on the first day, so should we keep the same ratios going forward, things are looking very good for this bill passing. It's just a matter of letting other people know, getting the message out so that we can continue this momentum. Our main topic, our only topic today, has been this geoengineering and the bill IR 2029 to ban chemtrailing in Suffolk County. We have a very special guest today, Siobhan Ciresi of Long Island Skywatch. Is just full of facts and courage on this issue, and is also quite lovely, might I add. Siobhan?
Oh, thank you. That's nice of you to say. Thanks.
Well, you're very welcome. Now, please, how could somebody tell that if they're from a rural area and they don't have a lot of experience seeing a chemtrail, how would they notice the difference?
Right. Well, that's a good question. Well, I've noticed in my own photographs and watching the sky and watching a lot of video footage that people have captured, and thank God they have captured it on film, you will see a normal jet vapor contrail really just follows along with the jet as it's flying, and is fairly short for the most part, and it kind of dissolves and disappears as it goes along. Then you see these very, very high-altitude planes. Sometimes you can't even make them out. They're so tiny because they're so high up. And sometimes you can. But you see them leaving long trails that get dropped into the atmosphere. And sometimes you'll see them spraying, and then they'll stop spraying, and then they'll resume spraying. So if that was a normal jet vapor contrail, it would be continuous. It wouldn't stop, pause, and then start again. So that's one of the telltale things you can look for as well. But you'll notice these types of trails, which are called persistent jet contrails, they are not only long and stretch sometimes from horizon to horizon, but they start spreading out into artificial haze or like a cloud cover. And so that's how you can tell the difference. You'll see these trails being injected into the sky and then spreading out to cover the sky. You'll see it a lot in front of the sun in the mornings when the sun's rising, and for the few hours, that it's up and moving, they will block it out. And sometimes during sunset, you'll see it only by the sun, and you can look in the opposite direction, and there's a blue, clear sky. So it's very obvious. Once one starts paying attention regularly, it's completely obvious and self-evident the difference between a normal jet vapor contrail and a persistent jet contrail that are associated with the stratospheric aerosol programs and reports and everything they're proposing.
All right. Now, I've noticed in these clouds sometimes there almost seems to be some type of a wave pattern. Once they've dispersed and spread out, it almost looks as if a wave is passing through them. Now, I've done a little bit of research on HAARP. I'm sure you probably have a lot more facts on it than I do. But HAARP is actually based on the work of Nikola Tesla, whose work was shut down when one of his funders was J.P. Morgan, asked him how his free wireless energy, he said, where do you put the meter in? And Nikola Tesla said, no, you don't. This is free energy for everybody. And then he was shut down, and his work was, I guess, turned into dealing with this HAARP. So is it possible that somehow HAARP is beaming through these clouds for some reason?
It's possible, absolutely. HAARP is another way to modify weather in and of itself. And then HAARP deals with energy and frequencies. In HR 2977, the same bill that did not become law, but the same bill that listed chemtrails also refers to HAARP. They call it HAARP, but they talk about weapons that can direct sources of energy, including atomic energy, subatomic particle beams, electromagnetic radiation, extremely low frequency or ultra low frequency waves. So HAARP does that. HAARP is an antenna array for putting out frequencies. So
it's entirely possible.
Entirely possible. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
And now, just so everybody knows, humans, life, the planet, all operates in a higher frequency range. And when you have an artificial manipulation and introduction of lower frequencies, it essentially conflicts and stifles anything that operates in a life frequency, in a higher vibration.
Hence the psychological potential. Right, the psychological operations and the potential of that in owning the weather 2025. Absolutely.
Right, because
it's related.
Well, sure, because there's a certain amount of electricity running through our own bodies. So if you're dealing with these frequencies and a lot of this technology is also at a quantum physics type level, the very basic building blocks of life itself and everything we know and see and can touch, whether it's an inanimate object or not. And that's now become the playground for a very small amount of people.
That's right. As you say, we're electrical beings. We're frequency beings. We emit frequency and we receive frequencies. So if they're putting out frequencies that are harmful to our psyche, that could affect us. And HAARP does have the ability, I've read it on their website once, has the ability to distort mood, create mood changes over vast amounts of the population due to the frequencies that it can emit. So this does have psychological implications to it. For me, my solution for that is just for my own self to be the maintainer of whatever frequencies I want to be in for myself, which has something to do with peace and balance and joy. So I think just
if you ever visit the church here, you'll notice that when everybody meets you, they'll greet you by saying peace, which I think is
great to be speaking it out so much, because that has vibration, right? The words even hold vibration, sound has vibration. So that's really interesting that you bring up that aspect of it. I could talk about that for hours too. One thing I want to say also about a lot of times I hear, not so much anymore, but especially when I first began talking about this, people would say, oh, God, they would never do that. The government wouldn't do that. And if you look into the facts, our government has a history of experimenting on the public without the public's consent and without the public's knowledge. We know just from the CIA's MK Ultra mind control experiments.
Sure, even the troops in Vietnam, they were exposed to LSD, Agent Orange, and who knows what else.
Yeah. And so there's a long history of the government experimenting on its own citizens. In 2002, the British government released reports that discussed and revealed spraying experiments they were doing over the population in the UK. And it says, in the UK Guardian mentioned this in 2002, in April, says the report revealed the dice trials in South Dorset between 1971 and 1975. These involved the United States and UK military scientists spraying into the air massive quantities of bacteria with an anthrax simulant and phenol, which if you look up phenol, it says it's a poisonous white crystalline compound derived from plastics and pharmaceuticals. So this was being sprayed on the population, and of course, that particular government who was in office at the time and successive governments tried very, very hard and did a good job of keeping the germ warfare testing a secret. So, we shouldn't be looking, I don't want to say we shouldn't, but it doesn't benefit us to look to the federal government to come out and just admit it in one big, public speech. It's not going to happen that way. They don't tell us the truth to begin with about a lot of things. So to look to them to do something about this and be truthful about it and have transparency and public hearings, it's a waste of our energy. That's, again, hence why we're doing it at the level we're doing it at. We tried going global. I know my friends, belong on Skywatch, Jimmy and Jim. We've tried going, bigger. They've tried meeting with their state senators about this. We've tried the EPA. I've sent my results to the EPA. Global is not the way to go. It's just too big. It has to be done at the grassroots level.
Sure, but once this bill passes, it's going to encourage others, as well to do it. So if you have, the vast majority of the world with all these local mandates, eventually it's going to reach a critical mass where it does go global, but not in a globalism sense, in a solidarity sense of people just standing up and saying, you're not going to spray us like we're a bunch of bugs, and you're these, mad scientist exterminators.
Yeah, enough is enough. I personally I'm done. I'm over it. I'm done not having a voice about this. This affects me. This would affect. I'm 33 years old, Anthony, and when I think about having children, I'm not really sure about that because what am I bringing them into? The toxic chemical soup that we're swimming in. Babies, mothers are suffering from vitamin D deficiency too, just like everybody else, and this is affecting the health of the children when they're born. There's various studies on this too.
Now, I find that heartbreaking that you have to think that way because, you're a person that, would sustain and raise the children the right way, and now someone like you has to have second thoughts about it, whereas, someone that might not do as good of a job as you would continue and not have second thoughts about it. So what does that say about the future of where humanity is going if educated, good people like yourself have to think like that?
Yeah, this is sometimes what I contemplate. So, that's a personal thing anyway, but I think most people who are aware of this, maybe around my age, maybe considering having children, it's something to consider. So if you do have them, you want to do everything you can to restore your body to health. So detox those heavy metals, take vitamin D supplements. Find a doctor who focuses on nutrition. Another thing I wanted to touch on with you is the levels of aluminum being found not only in our life support systems. Aluminum is being found in people's blood, barium, in high levels. So people out there, if you have health insurance and if you have primary care physicians, if you have a doctor, you can go, and ask him or her for a test, testing your blood for heavy metals. And I would encourage you to do that because other places around the country are doing that. In Arizona, citizens and residents of Arizona collected their blood. They got it tested by certified medical labs. And then they sent these tests to state and federal elected officials demanding an investigation because their blood samples showed extremely high amounts of barium or aluminum or both. And so that's happening in people's blood. It's also happening on Long Island. We've been taking our own samples. California has amounts of aluminum through the roof. I mean, just insane astronomical amounts of aluminum showing up in their surface waters and snow. So just for a little background, and so we can compare, the EPA for aquatic environments, meaning pond waters, surface waters, caps out aluminum at 750 parts per billion. At 750 parts per billion, they know that it's not going to be safe anymore, and if it's prolonged, it's something that's harmful to the aquatic environment. So again, 750. We've sampled ponds on Long Island in different towns on the same days. One of the highest readings we got back was from Islip, New York, the Islip High School, which is where I went to high school, actually, and graduated from.
Okay.
And so I went back there, and I tested one of the ponds there, the one right in front of the school. It's a sizable pond. It's pretty big. And this pond showed 8,700 parts per billion of aluminum. So that's like almost 8,000 parts per billion over what the EPA caps it out at. On the same day, another sample in Oakdale and Byron Lake Park, and another pond showed 4,900 parts per billion of aluminum. And both of these samples showed barium and strontium, which are, if you look into some of these patents for weather modification, you will see some of these patents call for aluminum, barium, strontium.
Right.
So that's what we're finding. And we're finding it in tree bark. Cindy took a sample from a Long Island Skywatch partners. They took a sample from their backyard at their tree bark tested, and it came up with aluminum, barium, and strontium as well. So it's being found in people's blood. It's being found in tree bark. It's being found in surface waters. In free-falling snow, I found aluminum. Free-falling snow, 200 plus parts per billion of aluminum.
Now, it's funny you bring up snow. It's not funny, but it's triggering a memory in me. I've noticed over the past couple of winters, every once in a while we get this snowfall, and being from Long Island, New York, we've both seen more than our fair share of snowfall and what snowflakes tend to look like. I mean, even though, of course, under a microscope, every snowflake looks different, but what I'm getting at is we generally know the physical appearance of snowflakes as they come down to the naked eye. And what I've been noticing is sometimes when it snows, it almost looks like instead of the snowflakes I'm accustomed to seeing, regardless of size and consistency, how quickly they dissolve when they hit the ground, but they almost look like little styrofoam balls. If you could picture something slightly larger than the point of a ballpoint pen, looking completely uniform, round, and looking like a little styrofoam ball. It's very strange.
Yeah, that is.
And that's something I never noticed before.
Yeah, just like the trails. When I can recall my childhood, I never saw anything like that before.
Mm-hmm.
The trails that expand into cloud cover and cover up the whole sky. Never. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of things. Things that we were told are science fiction. They're already here. They've been here.
Yeah.
We've just been programmed to believe it's science fiction, and so we, laugh it off. People will laugh off geoengineering or the word, chemtrails without even looking into it. So science fiction is here already. And like I said, with the levels of aluminum and barium, and I'll give you some just readings very quickly from California. California, let's see, one of their, the Lake Shasta sample tested at 4,610,000 parts per billion of aluminum. So you're talking in the millions, and the EPA is capping it out at 750. So that's pretty insane.
Right. Well, I don't know who you're supporting for president, but I'm personally supporting Ron Paul, and he wants to do away with the EPA. And if they're going to be, completely blind and ignorant on this issue and many other issues, they seem to be doing more harm than good. I certainly support the idea of getting rid of the EPA and just having people at the local level do what you and your group Long Island Skywatch are doing through education and through getting legislation passed at the local level.
I agree with you, because we're getting more accomplished at the local level, educating each other, speaking out, than we possibly could be from the federal level. Again, there's no communication about it coming down from the federal government whatsoever.
Well, this is the beauty of America's system of government, should the American people choose to take hold of it, which for someone that pays attention as much as I pay attention to various different pieces of news, it seems like we're well along the way of doing so, but there's still quite a lot of work to be done, and it's just something that, it's not going to happen overnight, but through a collective effort, consistent effort, I think we're going to have a world where you and other people don't have to be concerned to have children and worried if all the geoengineering is going to end up having you have children that aren't living up to full capacity of quality of life. And I would like to make the case that you're very motherly to this world in a sense of trying to protect and help out humanity, and I look to do the same thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Only a little fatherly on my end. It's not motherly, but you know what I'm getting at.
No, yeah, but I know what you mean. Thank you. I appreciate that. So this is what we're dealing with. We really are faced with a choice here, right? If we're going to allow our atmosphere to be used as a physics lab for private interests, for profit making, for experimenting, or are we going to, like you said, take hold of not only our government, but take a hold of our life support systems and regain responsibility for them? Because right now they're in a dire state. There's massive tree die-off or tree dieback. There's a book called The Dying of the Trees by Charles Little, and he talks about aluminum, which is increasingly being found in water samples and in trees. And he talks about how the aluminum kills the roots. The aluminum in the forms that it's being found in and the amounts it's being found in are actually impacting the roots of trees, and
I'll tell you how it works.
Very, very ill.
It seals them up so they're not absorbing water, because there's these aluminum sticks that some people use for shaving, and they put it across their face or wherever, to stop a small nick, and it seals up the blood flow. So it's not a far stretch of the imagination to imagine that the tree root system is being stopped up the same way.
Well, so what's happening in this process that you're speaking of is causing record numbers of trees to be in decline, and they are in decline. And
I'd also like to add, anybody out there that uses deodorant, it's also aluminum in your deodorant with the intention of sealing up that sweat from coming out. So if you get yourself an aluminum-free deodorant, you're at least reducing your aluminum intake.
Right. It's good to be conscious of that.
It sure is, and it's the same price, and it's not exactly hard to find, and you're doing yourself a great service in regards to your overall health and well-being, because you're already getting a heaping helping of aluminum otherwise, so why take more of it when you don't have to?
And and also vitamin D supplementing is good, and anytime the sun is out and it's not being obstructed, be sure to get some of that sunlight, even if it's through a window. Expose yourself to the sunlight for a while, because this is what kickstarts your vitamin D production in your body. And there's reserves that the body will hold and use over, let's say, winters or dark, where it's darker for longer. But essentially, we need that sunlight to produce vitamin D in our bodies. And so you want to try to catch those sun rays if you can when it's out. I mean, the sun's always out, more accurately when it's not being covered.
Absolutely, and there's actually a history of some of the wealthiest people known throughout history frequenting, having a little break during their day where they would walk around outside and get some sunlight. And it's probably a large part of the reason is it's overall beneficial to your life and to your quality of life, to your mental capacity and your physical capacity. So Siobhan, please help us wrap this up in a nutshell. What could people do to help? How could people reach out to you? Please tell us.
Okay. Well, there's a number of ways. First, people can visit www.longislandskywatch.com. All the information about the public hearing, the legislation put forward, all of that is on there. So visit that website. And I want to urge people to come to this meeting tomorrow, December 15th. Be there at 1:45, especially if you'd like to speak, because you get 3 minutes to speak, and you can fill out a card to do that. So if you can do 2, but try to get there a few minutes early if you can. I'll throw out the address real quick. It's at the auditorium of the William H. Rogers Legislature Building, 725 Veterans Memorial Highway in Smithtown, New York. If you get lost, call 631-853-4070. And, of course, my personal website you can visit, which also has this information. I have a page on geoengineering. It has all the information and flyers and invites for the meeting for tomorrow, if anybody who can download it and send it out to their friends and family on Long Island, so that these people can be here tomorrow. So that website is www.humanitytranscending.com. You can find it just by typing it in, and searching it, or actually putting the entire website in the link. So those are ways that you can contact us. I encourage you to get your own blood samples taken. I encourage folks to sample their soils, their tree bark, their surface waters. Now that we're coming into winter, any snow that's falling, get it tested. We can direct you to labs on Long Island to take your samples to. We can pretty much guide you through the process easily. So please contact us. My personal email is Ciresi, SECIRESI, @humanitytranscending.com, and I can help you with that.
Great. There's also details at there's a article I wrote on my fan page, Anthony Tolda for Congress. So it's also on my personal page, Anthony Tolda. It's a great place to get updates and catch up with this issue as well. And for anybody that's still learning and new to this, basically this is an issue you want to learn about. If you're someone that breathes and drinks water and eats, which safely say covers all of us, this is an issue that affects you, and very seriously, whether you realize it or not. And if you live in some rural area where it's not quite trickling to you yet, it probably is in ways you're not even totally consciously aware of. And if you're lucky enough that that's not the case, your luck's probably going to run out soon if we don't have a massive movement of people all over the world combating this on a local level, because clearly it's not working on a federal level for us or other countries for that matter, because you've heard about whole countries kicking out Monsanto and Hungary burning all of their Monsanto cornfields, which is great, but it'd be nice to see those countries step it up and ban chemtrails as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's all relevant. The GMO issue is very important, too. Getting together on that and banning it from being allowed in our communities.
All right. I'm so glad to be a part of this issue that just covers all political spectrums, because the idea of everybody agreeing on something, it's kind of a far-fetched concept, but I truly believe that through education that a vast majority can agree on this. It's very simple. If you value your own life, and I'd like to think that most people do value their own life, then you should have concern about this issue, and you should want to help be a part of the solution.
Absolutely. We're all in this together. Truly. Nobody's exempt from this. Nobody's not getting sprayed. I think about that. Even the elite, or even the people that could afford to do such a thing. How is it that they're getting sprayed too? So it affects everything. Perhaps they have access to treatments that we don't have.
Well, I mean, the elite, you're talking about people with vast amounts of wealth that could fix themselves up at preventative maintenance, continual maintenance, what have you. Plus maybe some other ways of circumventing any damage from this that maybe we're not privy to. Who knows? But certainly they're in a position to fund maintaining their bodies better if they chose to do that, and than the average person who might just be living hand to mouth, as is said, paycheck to paycheck, what have you, doesn't necessarily have hundreds of dollars a month or whatever it breaks down to effectively consistently cleanse yourself of all these poisons that are being put into us through the food and the water and the air.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. So we do what we can then. We do what we have within our power to do, which is exactly what we're doing with Long Island Scottish and everybody who was at that hearing. Mm-hmm. That was one of the most inspiring, extraordinary life experiences I've ever had, to be in that auditorium with every seat filled, with people standing at the back of the room because there were no seats left available, with 2 hours of discussion on this bill and roughly 20 testimonies from people. It was extraordinary. It was really amazing. I'm still in awe. I'm very happy to be part of this.
I completely agree, and it felt great to be able to be a part of that and to address the issue for a couple of minutes myself. And watching your video, I mean, you were very impressive. If anybody wants to see it on YouTube, it's not hard to find. If they just put, I'm sure, Suffolk County Geoengineering bill into the YouTube search engine, I'm sure it pops up right away. And there's various links on my Anthony Tolda Facebook and Anthony Tolda for Congress Facebook. There's links up, and I would imagine that your websites will probably have some clips up, if they don't already, relatively soon as well.
Yep, they're up. If you go to my website, I provide the links for the first two clips of the public hearing, and there's several more. But yeah, it's easy to access. You just go into YouTube and type in public hearing, proposal to ban geoengineering, or Suffolk County chemtrail hearing, anything like that, it will come up.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's great to be a part of this history of taking freedom back for America and for this world, and the potential of this to reach people and have an effect is massive. And it's my personal opinion that once we have greater and greater degrees of success with this as time moves on, I think it's going to encourage a lot of people not only to help out with this issue, but encourage them to pursue other issues as well, seeing the success that is born out of this.
Exactly. I think you're right about that. I think it's very inspiring and encouraging. And as you say, it lead into other issues, because everything's sort of connected. So just like the aluminum-resistant seeds, so you have the biotech industry, companies like Monsanto, being able to profit off of geoengineering experiments that release aluminum into the atmosphere and settle into the soil. So yeah, this leads you down different roads. And coming together, we can make a difference. We can each take a piece or a part of it, and assume responsibility again for our own well-being and our own health.
Sure, many hands make light work. It's a true saying, and there's a ton of hands working on this already. But hopefully through this broadcast and the YouTube videos that will follow, and the YouTube videos from the upcoming hearings and the hearing already, that we're gonna see a heck of a lot more hands. Excuse me for saying heck on the Manning Report. I apologize. But to our audience there, it's a slip of the tongue. But I think this is going to get a lot more hands on deck to work on this.
I think so too. That would be amazing. That's our intention. One of our intentions.
Well, I'm certain that it's already working, and we did have a couple of callers we weren't able to take, but hopefully those people are going to be telling everybody they know and contributing to this as well. Now, there's only 5 people that need to be influenced for tomorrow. Hopefully we get a unanimous vote tomorrow, and then there's 18 people that we need to reach out to for the 20th, and the ratios are great. From what you told me, I think it was 4 people from tomorrow allowed the bill to continue to this point, so theoretically those 4 will allow the bill to continue on to the general vote, and then hopefully we get a unanimous general vote, or at least the 16 stay the course, and then we pass this bill easily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and tomorrow's another opportunity to share our concerns with the Health Committee. And, the one who is on the fence, hopefully we can get him to reconsider the facts and hear tomorrow's testimonies and reconsider all of that. and reconsider the implications for their own families.
Absolutely, because it affects
grandchildren. Yeah,
of course, and their friends and everybody they know. Siobhan, we are nearing the end of our segment here, and I thank you so much for your work with Long Island Skywatch. And the work you guys are doing are amazing, and it was my pleasure to help you out with this forum today. Now, we do have to move on, and I'd like to thank Reverend Manning for giving me the opportunity to guest host the show. Thank the listeners for being willing to hear this and hopefully assist in this matter.
All true, all the time, the Manning Report is sure to blow your mind. Just let me hear